How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for this video, I'm actually sitting in the IPD USA office. This is the warehouse. This is where all the parts get sent out from. And I'm here to talk about some of the handling products that you could get from IPD USA. Now, if you've been following the S60R build, you know that I'm trying to do the Project Driver mod. I'm trying to make myself into a better driver. And the platform is the Volvo S60R, the 2005 P2 platform. So I'm here to show you some of the products you could get from IPD that will make your S60R into a track monster. Let's go take a look at these parts, and Chris from IPD USA is going to show you what they're all about. So I've got Chris here. He's the general manager here at IPD USA, and he's brought out some of these products, and let's talk about it.
So these are all pieces that IPD makes exclusively. These are proprietary items that we develop. Doesn't mean you can't go find other items out there, but these are stuff that we've either looked at where we can enhance the handling of your car, really help make it more unique and to your driving standards. Obviously, IPD is known for suspension solutions and building suspension components, so we just brought out a few pieces that we have engineered and manufactured in-house to help make your ride a little bit more competitive.
Okay, so what do we got here? We've got the lowering springs, obviously, right?
Right, lowering springs are, people don't necessarily think about really what a lowering spring does other than just the appearance of your car, right? The thing is that a lowering spring can actually not help the handling if you don't set it with the proper components like sway bars or something like that. Just because you're lowering the center of gravity of your vehicle doesn't really mean that necessarily it's going to handle better. You have shocks, struts, other components that go into that that really help get the most out of your lowering spring. So we really recommend, if you're going to lower your car, definitely a set of sway bars will go along with it. But lowering springs we cover for basically all models, from vintage up to newer vehicles, yeah, I mean, they're fantastic.
Now, what's the achieved lowering from when you install these lowering springs on, say, something like a P2 S60R or V70R?
Right. We like to aim for around 1 1/4 to 1.5 inch drop. One, appearance definitely is more appealing. That's why people usually dive into a lowering spring, because they want to change the look of their car and get rid of that gap between the tire and the fender well. We don't want to go too aggressive. Obviously, there's a lot of alternative ways to lower your vehicle out there in the aftermarket. IPD springs give it a real aggressive look, but they're very functional as well.
Now, like you mentioned before, lowering springs always go hand in hand with sway bars because you want to improve your performance. So we've got some IPD sway bars here.
Yep.
Can you talk more about those?
Well, IPD sway bars is the bread and butter of our business. I mean, it's what put us on the map. We started off with developing sway bars back in the early 60s, with vintage Volvos. And since then, we've progressed into the latest of model chassis, working with our dynamic stability control, all the suspension settings, whether or not it's a front or rear bar, but sway bars is where it's at. If you really want to increase the handling of your vehicle, Volvo left a lot on the table with their factory sway bars to what we manufacture, and so there's a lot to be had with improving the capabilities of what you want to do with your car with a set of sway bars.
I think the most noticeable thing here is just how much thicker these sway bars are compared to OE.
Right.
And have you test driven the difference between like a stock Volvo and what a Volvo could do with these new sway bars?
Right, and one thing I like to talk about is a lot of people, one of the biggest calls that we get is, you guys make a 22 millimeter bar and the stock one's 20. How is 2 millimeters really going to enhance the handling of my vehicle? What they don't understand is that we're using different types of materials. We're actually using spring steel in some applications, 4140 chromoly in others. It's a solid bar compared to where a lot of manufacturers use hollow bars. So on their newest of chassis, it might be a lighter weight hollow bar that's really not doing much. So in some instances, just doing a solid bar, we can even go down in diameter and it will outperform what's on the factory car. Sometimes even by increasing it by 200 to 300% stiffness and roll capability. So resistance on the vehicle. So doing a set of sway bars, just because the diameter maybe just a little bit more than what you see on your vehicle, that really doesn't mean anything, to be honest. It's really the engineering and the thought process that goes behind developing the size and bar specific to the Volvo, and that's what we do.
That's true, yeah. Like you mentioned, you can't really see the inside diameter of this thing, so you can't really tell the thickness, the wall thickness of the sway bars from other manufacturers, but you can tell with this one, and just test drive the difference between the two, and these will make a huge difference. And now the next product I actually just replaced, and if you're interested to see how to replace one of these parts, click the link up here. But the problem with end links is that these threads, they see a lot of rust on them, so sometimes these are consumable items. So anytime you want to replace a sway bar, you generally want to buy these as well. So can you talk more about the IPD end links that you have here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that initially when we were making our own, we got into a little bit of trouble with some of these on the East Coast. You know, salt, definitely chemicals that are used on the highway attack these parts really easy because they're exposed underneath the vehicle. Initially, we were using a rubber boot, and we were using a really lightweight lithium-based grease to protect this stainless steel socket that's in here. When we started to see all the issues, IPD went ahead and we started putting more money and R&D into these things, and now we use the Aqualube or AquaShield grease that you would see on our sway bar and polyurethane bushing applications. That replaced the lithium-based grease that's on the inside of this boot. This boot used to be rubber, now we're using silicone, so that way it's a lot more resistant to any type of harsh chemicals that are being used on the road or salting or anything like that during the winter months. So we have stepped up the game on these end links. I believe that they're definitely the best out there in the aftermarket. Doesn't mean that they're not prone to failure once in a while. In some really harsh climates, they can, but we'll take care of you. You know, I mean, these things are fantastic, and we offer a really good warranty on them.
All right. And rolling down the line here, what do we have next?
These are control arms. We offer control arms for most of the P2 applications, all the way from XC70, S60R, and V70R. The reason why we decided to develop our own is because we were looking at some of the competitors out there, and they were offering stiffer bushing material. On the P2 chassis, you got to remember that Volvo designed their cars to be comfortable, and they did that with using a recyclable material or rubber that goes into these places, and you actually used to be able to flex an OEM mount here, and you'd be able to move the sleeve or the bushing that's in there. And a lot of aftermarket competitors just decided to make a harder bushing. But the thing is that the way that the control arm is actually designed, it's actually made to work. They're not similar on both of these bushings. They actually rotate differently than each other. So IPD went ahead and we decided to just use better material. We didn't want to increase what was used there. We just wanted to use better product, a non-recyclable material that's going to be still give you a little bit of comfort because that's what the car was designed for, but you're getting performance out of it as well because it is a better material, it's a little harder material, and it won't shear. So if you go too stiff or you increase the durometer in here, we have seen these things shear just due to the amount of flex and resistance that the chassis takes at this location. So IPD has a full line of control arms for P2 cars that combat that.
And in general, when you're replacing one of these things, you know, when the bushings wear out,
right,
removing these bushings could be very tasking, that to the point where it's just easier to just replace this entire thing.
I believe that. A lot of independent repair centers will actually use an updated bushing here, and they actually can make more money doing that because they're getting more labor time and they're not paying for the physical part. The fact is that if you're doing this yourself at home, or the do-it-yourselfer average guy can replace these in his driveway with the ball joint and the steering stop here, you can actually replace this whole thing and save yourself some money and get an added benefit by having a better product.
Yeah.
So.
And people forget about the labor costs, so you
Right.
brought up a very good point about that.
Right.
So how about this one over here?
This is just showing a little bit of, you know, how IPD goes over the top on specific items. You know, this is a lower torque mount or transmission mount for a P2 chassis vehicle. You know, we actually carry this in other variations where it actually uses the factory mount, the cast mount, with some polyurethane bushings. This bushing does wear out and it can cause some clunks, you know, going in and out of gear, causes unwanted vibration if it's completely blown out. IPD decided to make one that was fully made out of 6061 billet. It's under the car, you don't see it, but the thing is that it's really cool, so why not? So IPD went a little bit of above and beyond on this type of a product. We do that for different chassis. We got the P2, the P1. The P1 mount, we actually made the first tunable engine mount. So it's got these little billet dowels that go in here to actually stiffen up the bushing. I know you asked me earlier about unwanted vibration, and IPD does think about that with our customers. You know, Volvo created a bushing there to where it's really soft. That way you don't feel that vibration. Unfortunately, those types of parts prematurely fail. So you've got to give up a little bit to get some more added performance. And IPD keeps that in mind by using a softer durometer in the polyurethane bushing that's here. That's why on this particular bushing, you can actually stiffen it up by, you know, putting a dowel inside these holes if you want. But with that, you're going to get a little bit more vibration, but more performance. So just a way that we go over the top that's a little unnecessary, but it's cool and people love it.
Now, would you say that this is the easiest part that you could modify on your car?
That is pretty easy. That's a straight bolt-in application. It's 4 bolts. It's not a big deal. There's a lot of other parts that you can modify on your vehicle that are pretty simple, but that's about as easy as it gets.
Well, there you have it. Those are some of the handling parts that you could install on your S60R, V70R, any Volvos that you have, C30, any Volvo, you name it, they have the parts to kind of basically make your car even better. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think? you like IPD USA stuff, please let me know. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up the video right there. Thank you so much, Chris, for giving me a rundown. And my name is Hanson. I'll see you next time.